Mars moves into Cancer today. My Mars is in Libra, where I found my children and my war with the justice system and my Buick exploding and General Motors in my third house there, especially that rules vehicles and transportation, right? Mars attacking me here, the mother that lost her children. Mars is here to remind me about the death certificates that I do not want to sign because everything on my channel and my spirit is trying to build, obviously, tells me not to. And Bob, my lawyer, who delegates everything to everyone else, won't speak to me. Bob that sits on top of water like a bobber. This is what I have to deal with. Know your signs. Mars moves into Cancer today. What does it mean? I want to know. I want to know. I'm not going to start with Leo rising. We'll start with Aries rising. Going through the houses when you use an equal house system. And then we'll go more on really, we'll start. Let's read a little bit about Mars and Cancer. Just curious if we see any signs. Here we go. This is a small book that I picked up at a $5 store here outside of Detroit. Mars and Cancer, looking for the signs. Okay, we're looking for the signs, trying to make sense. The first words out of your mouth are almost always, I can't. You're so convinced that you're not good enough, that you'll be rejected, or that you haven't a snowball's chance in hell that you'd rather not try. Picking up your things and leaving the scene is easier than facing disappointment. Mars in fall in Cancer is in fall in Cancer because the crab is famous for beating a hasty retreat. Self-preservation trumps risk every time. But just because you left doesn't mean you won't be back. You're not very successful at talking yourself out of things you truly want. In fact, the more you try to talk yourself out of something, the more you'll wind up going for it. Which explains why after piling up all the cheaper items on the counter, you'll inevitably purchase the most expensive one. Backward, but it works. Walking away from challenges has taught you a lot about how to approach them. Preparation is one. The element of surprise is another. You only act when you're ready, and when you do, it's the exception of success. Cancer Mars fires up Cancer suns by making them hold on to what they've got. Irritates Gemini and Leo suns by making them ornery and cranky. Well, I'm a Leo rise. Allies with Taurus and Virgo sun, because it really knows how to drive a hard bargain. Squares off against Aries and Libra suns by forcing them to address what lies beneath the surface. Yeah, my children's father is a Libra sun. I feel like we're dealing what's underneath the surface. Support Scorpio and Pisces suns by making them express their needs unapologetically. Mars in Cancer is my 12th house. So we'll see what more that has to do as far as my inner world, my children, being a mother, all of this. Let's see. So for Aries, learning more about Cancer, which I have a lot of notes of Mars and Cancer, the crab that moves sideways rather than confronting. And he has his sharp pincers, though. Can be offensive too sometimes, but moving sideways, very interesting. Actually, the arc and the crab, same thing, that's at the top of this circle over here, and makes his way around when the sun is in Cancer and then begins his descent again. So Mars in Cancer, which is interesting if we thought about it that way, being at the pinnacle maybe of we're fighting for two our foundations, and even I think our DNA, our bloodlines, everything. We'll see. Okay. Mars is in detriment though in Cancer. Avoid overreacting. Patience and kindness is rewarded. Urgent to care based on intrinsic fear of being hurt too. and maybe knowing what that pain's like, being hurt. Actions to prevent pain, overprotectiveness, protectiveness as aggression or offensiveness. Cancer is the essence of a simulation. Gently does it. Fear can be vulnerable, defensive, timid, reclusive, too deeply involved with others, the root of many problems, is the root of many problems. Prone to insecurity. I feel a little bit of comparison too when we think about our foundations and stuff too, and depending where Jupiter is in your chart. Some may feel the emphasis to expand that home in that environment. Watch your tone with Cancers. I have a note here that emotions are products of self-deception, which comes from our desire to be attached, to be loved, to be taken care of, to be supported. That makes a lot of sense. My roommate is going through a lot right now. And he's a Gemini. His focus, he didn't get to grow up with his real brothers and sisters. He was told his cousins were his family, and he's going to be great. And I'm the only one in his corner. We don't know his family, so that's coming to the forefront right now for him and his security and how much that means. And I tell him to take some pressure off of himself, that we made it this far, that we're safe and we're going to do good. But that means something, that this is a theme coming to the forefront for all of us. Mars moving into Cancer, especially Mars moving into Cancer. Mars is action oriented. We're going to take action very quickly based on all what's going on, especially Mercury entering Aries in 2 days. In Cancer, we can behave as if we are caring for a child, which certainly I take my roommate on as I adopted him. Or to be comfortable, to be safe. We care deeply and joyously, optimistic, but we can be hypersensitive. That attachment can reveal something that we're in fear of losing, if we're feeling attachment, you can tell by that fear of losing something, but it's something that we always have, something that can never be lost. Prone to insecurity. Saturn is in detriment here. I have a note for any of you that have Saturn in Cancer, where we can give too much of ourselves. There's a note there. Interesting. Let me know. Hercules and the golden fawn, told to rescue from Artemis, the moon, mistress, huntress. After a year of trickery, Hercules shot the fawn in the foot and returned it to the temple, claiming the fawn was his by right of skill and search. But God denied him the fawn. When Hercules looked back, the fawn stood unwounded. The hunt, the craving, the emotional attachment, especially with the lamb. And I always love the golden fawn, the golden lambs, thinking of Miley Cyrus's new song, and she comes out with the golden lamb, and it's really something sacred. It's the part of you that's sacred. It comes from the right side of the brain, the pineal gland, and the marriage of the pineal gland chrism, claustrum, that's created and travels throughout the body, creates charisma, creates claustrum to feed our children, and it's a sacred thing. It's the milk and honey. That's the golden fawn. Transcending emotional possessiveness. The craving for emotional attachment motivates searching and confusion, may even lead to harm the very thing that we love. Shooting the fawn in the foot, the thing that we really wanted to get the most, and the fawn wasn't hurt and didn't go anywhere. I also think of Jordan Peterson's explanation of the edible mother, the over-consuming mother that loves too much and too hard. The Hansel and Gretel leads them in and feeds them and fattens them up, and how too much love and the symbolism of too much love can spoil somebody as well. And the lack of the real nurturing, the real foundations. I think of my grandfather that's a Cancer, he's the pinnacle of the family. I believe my Uncle John is too, John Smith in West Virginia. My Uncle John Smith, he was always what a man was to me, that this pinnacle, someone who's keeping the house together, who's taking care of things, and who's had to work through adversity and overcome things, and they teach other people to stand up no matter what and get your chin up and get going, and there's a way to get it done, and you make a plan, and there's a tough side to Cancer too. There's a real foundational tough side, that building this temple, that it's not just built with thought alone, that it takes action, that Mars in Cancer, how about that? The world it might be built on thought alone. It's at least the initiator, right? Aries, and grounding it for the reasons of Cancer, building our foundations, making things secure for ourselves. So, beginning with Aries, the fourth house, again, exaggerating that fourth house concept we talked about with Cancer, the foundations, the making the independence. Aries is active, independent, try to avoid aggression, but that defensive aggression, again, the protectiveness aggression, that fourth house protectiveness may be coming to the forefront with Aries. Whether this is aspecting your ascendant sign, you may have aspects to whatever house this is too. So your Aries house, but if you're an Aries rising, it'll be your fourth house. But we'll all be feeling these things in some kind of way. Vedic astrology aspects all these different houses, depending on where you are. We can go deep, deep, deep. But for now, we'll stick to our ascendants and where Mars is entering Cancer to our ascendants. Taurus, it would be your third house, a forceful communicator, challenging ideas. Mars in the third house, and that's communicating to people close to us, whether we work with these people, probably more neighbors or siblings of any kind, step siblings, half siblings. We're speaking up about something on our mind. It may be work related, depending on where your Aries house is. I like to use an equal house system from the degree point, not a whole sign system, not a Pleiadian system, the equal house system for your birth chart. Gemini, Mars moving into Cancer in your second house strives for possessions and values. That second house, how we're received, how we get our value back after putting ourselves out there. For example, when you get your paycheck, maybe you want to do a little something for yourself that makes you feel good. That's part of that second house Binarian way of thinking, feeling, themes. Cancer, this would be our first house. Conscious, active, skillful, restless. Mars in our first house, absolutely. And people are going to notice that because it's our first house. So we might come off a little strong to people. We might have feelings like we need to combat or stand up for ourselves a little bit. But also skillful. So maybe we have some of our own personal ideas that we're really restless, conscious, active thinking about. Hopefully we can execute on. Skillful, maybe bringing that down into what's in front of us too. That first house is represented by Mercury as well. People don't associate Aries with Mercury, but Mercury is associated with the higher mind of Aries. Part of that pineal gland, messenger of the gods, the fast-moving fire sign, cardinal initiating sign that represents media communication, all of that, that is Aries in the first house. You might have some ideas and initiating ideas and skills that you're putting into practice. Leo is our 12th house, powerfully self-reliant, not always to own or others' benefit. Oh, well, that's a sign too, but I'm not like everybody else. I'm kind of an odd case when it comes to my fight with General Motors and all that. But we do have to be careful on what we're fighting for. Sometimes I have to remind myself, is it worth the battle? Or maybe sometimes just need to ask for help. Maybe sometimes people just need to humble themselves and say, okay, maybe I don't need to outwork my boss and everybody and prove myself or anyone else or a lover or whoever else or potential partner, any of that. Be self-reliant, but not offensive. Virgo in the 11th house, rebel with causes, especially for the underdog. And that is the greatest theme of Pluto moving into Aquarius, I hope. The 11th house is our community, what we do for that community. It's quite impersonal. What's the quote? I heard an astrologer say, Aquarians love humanity but hate people. It's for a greater good. Libra in the 10th house, ambitious, highly charged, challenging, successful. In the 10th house, putting into perspective our status that we want to get to, how people see us. My children's father is a Libra. Scorpio in the 9th house, Mars moving into Cancer in your 9th house, seeks adventure and meaning in active living and busy places. 9th house, faraway travel, but Mars being there is more short distance travel as opposed to Jupiter. And our day-to-day things, our day-to-day routines where we have to go and take care of, and those kind of actions, even basketball practice or what have you. The 9th house represents those faraway places, ruled with Jupiter, all about expanding the mind, culture. Maybe Scorpios really want to dive into some kind of religion or spiritual practice, traveling somewhere to go experience that. Sagittarius in your 8th house, courageous, effective, but best to avoid causing schisms. The 8th house does represent children. It can be a little bit detrimental and controversial when it comes to anything political, bringing secrets out. That 8th house, revealing things, that revealing nature of the 8th house from underground, the Scorpio, Pluto aspect, giving the courage, effective, best to avoid schisms. So what comes up, don't let it affect you so much that you keep focused, stay the course, whatever the challenge. 8th house rules our inheritances, our spouses, money, like I said, children. Capricorn in the 7th house, drawn to challenges and exciting relationships. Mars in the 7th house. The 7th house being opposite of our 1st house, representing other people in those interpersonal relationships we find with Venus in Libra. And the higher mind of Libra is actually Uranus. Uranus, like Aquarius, is for the greater good. So is Libra. I believe Uranus begins his exaltation from Libra, or maybe he's exalted there. Esoterically, Libra, Uranus, collective interrelatedness, intuition, urge to better the human condition. For Libra, esoterically, the esoteric ruler, which I have a video on here about the esoteric rulerships, the higher minds, if you will. Some call the higher mind. Like Mars, we say, is the higher mind of Scorpio, the desire, nature, spiritual drive, and idealism. The really good keynotes in here too. I have a video on that. You got to check it out. Capricorn, drawn to challenging and exciting relationships that aren't always stable. Oh, there's a catch there. Mars is a little bit combative. That would be in opposition of the rising. Aquarius enjoys vigorous work, tends to be overcomplicated when Mars moves into Cancer in your 6th house. As a Virgo, Mercury, Sun, and Jupiter in my 2nd house, I know all I do is diligence, cleaning, everything's in its place, checking off boxes, organize, check off boxes, write it down 100 times more. It's scribbled out, I gotta write it again. It's clean, it's comprehensible, it's detailed. Nobody can do it better. So this is a good time to check off some boxes and get some work done and really take some action. That Mars in the 6th house, it's going to serve you well. Keep in mind your health, especially your solar plexus and what you eat. And maybe you want to lay off the dairy and gluten while Mars is in your 6th house. Pisces, in your 5th house of fun and joy and pleasure and children. Mars can be competitive. That may indicate some really good sporting events and such, but very competitive, risky, possibly gambling, having too much fun, getting a little too carried away, lots of action, very fast, fire energy, passionate energy, maybe even sexual energy. Talking about gambling, you can really get sexual in this time and feeling yourself that way possibly, but maybe just dancing and having a great time too. Mars would be their good time of action and social dancing like I like to do. That 5th house, Leo ruled, loving the sun, the limelight, being out, being seen, being in the sunshine. So we might be feeling ourselves. We'll be feeling ourselves a little too much. We don't want to have too many consequences, especially squaring off to Saturn and Pisces, where that would be in your 1st house. There may be very real physical consequences to actions that you take right now, Mars moving into Cancer. So let me know down below how Mars in Cancer is affecting you, if you can feel it, what's changing, if you're seeing the signs. I'm the Mad Medicine Woman, Christina Frost. This is Constructive Interference. Constructively interfere down below. Check out my story by my Cherokee elder, Why I Fight the Fight I Do here in Detroit. Why I'm a mad, crazy lady. I'm not crazy. I'm just mad. Thank you so much for all the likes and everyone who goes to check out my story. Please share my story. And I appreciate, love you all so much. Mad Woman out.